Hello, good evening everyone. Welcome to the Fantasia Film Festival, back in person. It feels very, very good. Yay! So back at our full, space with 130, over 130 feature films and countless short films. Of course, I invite you to have a look at our schedule and catalog. Which, by the way, if you like the film that you're about to see, a quick recommendation that you may enjoy, All Jacked Up and Full of Worms, that's screening tomorrow at 7:10 in that same room. And also, if you like that film and if you want to recommend it, there's going to be a second screening on the 18th at 5 p.m. So you can spread the word. So welcome to the international premiere of Swallowed. It is a, how describe it, a crime/creature film with a compelling tenderness that's clashing up against extreme circumstances. So without further ado, I would like to call the filmmaker with us, Carter Smith. Give it up.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to spend Friday night with Swallowed and some queer horror. Who needs hard-boiled? We have queer horror. We got bugs and butts and all kinds of fun stuff. It's so great to be here in person. Thank you so much for having us. It was almost exactly a year ago that we were wrapping on the film and just over the border in Maine, and the 10 people on the crew driving our vehicles back in broken down, defeated, near-death experience that comes after making an indie film like this. And I will be back afterwards to answer questions with Jose Colon, who plays Dom in the movie. You'll get to see a lot more of Dom, and you can ask him questions. But other than that, enjoy the film. Thank you.
This was the international premiere of Swallowed, and please welcome back on stage filmmaker Carter Smith, big round of applause, and one of his actors, Jose Colon. All right, let's start by the beginning. The origin.
It's okay at the beginning.
Yeah. Where did you get this idea? What led you to make this film?
It started from wanting to make a movie that I didn't have to get producers, or I didn't have to wait for some sort of casting piece, or I wanted to do something that I could write, and I could write for what I had, which is that's my white Jeep, that's my parents' camp. I wanted to do a movie that if I had to, worst case scenario, I could go out and make it with a couple of key friends. And so I was pretty conscious in writing it that that might be the case, and it was.
Yeah, so the bugs is not the first time you...
Yeah, no, the bugs were in Bug the same bugs 15 years ago were in Bug Crush, which is my first short film. And the bugs, back in that story, they were sort of, I don't know if anyone had quite figured out how to monetize them and turn them into a proper drug, and things have, 15 years later, things have evolved. And the bugs have spread. Now they're on their way to LA, to the world of porn.
Casting. So you said it was a bunch of people you knew. You've worked with Jenna Malone before.
Yep.
And I particularly love Mark Payton, and there maybe you can tell us a little bit more about him and who he is for those who don't recognize him, and where also did you find those two incredibly handsome
Yeah, well,
actor.
the movie started actually because I photographed Jose in LA, and he said that had moved to LA to act, and we took some pictures. I went back to Maine, and I hadn't started writing the script yet, and I started writing the script, and he just kept kind of appearing in my head as this character Dom. So Dom didn't exist until I met Jose. So from the beginning, it was sort of kind of based around this guy. And then of course Jenna, who I'd worked with before, who I knew I could, text her and be like, "You want to come to Maine and make a movie, maybe?" And Mark Patton was, if anyone doesn't know, he was in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And there was a documentary about him and his sort of experience called Scream Queen. And I saw that documentary and kind of fell strangely, I was super fascinated by him and his personality. And so I wrote Rich, with him in mind as well. And messaged him on Instagram and said, I wrote a movie for you. And he didn't believe me, and it was a lot of, it was a little bit of back and forth, but I was like, yes, it's a real movie. Yes, I really wrote it for you. Yes, we're really gonna shoot it. And so it was all done through Instagram DMs, the casting process. that part of the casting process. And then Cooper, who played Benjamin, he was the only one that came in and actually read. He put himself on tape for the role. And, from the first second, the first time I saw that tape, it was very clear that he was Benjamin.
Nice. How do you define their relationship? It's so beautifully written, and I love how it evolved, and where does that come from? What is this?
I think most gay kids probably at some point fall in love with their straight best friend, maybe. And most of their straight best friends are not as cool as Dom is, so maybe it was wish fulfillment of actually, having someone who, cared for you and who treated you well, and this idea that it doesn't have to, their relationship can be intimate and loving, but without being, sexual. And then thinking, okay, these two characters, what's the absolute worst, most horrific situation that they could be in, and how could they be the most obscenely close to each other in the worst possible way that's horrific wish fulfillment gone horribly wrong. So that was kind of...
Are there any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. Yes.
The score, or it was Christopher Bear did the score. Who he is part of Grizzly Bear, and he's scoring stuff on his own, and it was kind of it was an interesting I'd never scored a film remotely, with not being in person, with someone, and it was just a lot of back and forth, sending stuff and kind of trying to figure it out via Zoom and remote conversations. It's kind of tricky actually when you're not in the room. And the one song Narcisco by Rina Mashanga, that song, when I started writing the script, I found that song randomly on Spotify, and as I was writing that opening scene, and I kind of was like, okay, this is the song that they're dancing to in the bar, and kept it on repeat for 5 weeks while I was writing, and it just, every time I turned on that song, pages would keep coming, so I was like, I'm not gonna break it if it's not broken, so I'm not sick of it yet, so, but I listened to, I think I checked my play numbers, and it's 9,000 plays or something crazy.
Another question? Yeah.
The screen ratio is apparent that you made a choice for that particular one. I was wondering if you might elaborate why you chose, I guess, the more. Was it a cat? Oh, it was 4:3.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, I knew because that cabin was, my family's cabin. I had spent a lot of time there, and I knew that we were going to be spending a lot of the film in there, and I knew that it also probably, it wasn't going to be the best widescreen. It's like a little wooden square box, That sort of, together with the idea that I knew that I wanted to do a lot of the movie in close-ups, and I think that a face in 4:3 fills the frame in a way that it doesn't when you're shooting widescreen or 16:9 or so many of the other formats. And so I knew that I wanted to be, I knew that for the whole, getting the bugs out, I wanted to be really tight on their faces. And so it kind of came from that.
Another question? I had a question mostly about nudity. Jose, you spend a lot of the film butt naked, and then you die. How was it? How did you collaborate on that, and maybe get comfortable, with that?
Yeah, I mean, being naked is great. So, Carter made me feel really comfortable, and it wasn't really a challenge, I like being naked.
Fair enough.
And also we were in that little room. There wasn't a ton of people,
Super intimate.
Yeah, and the rest stop, it was all, there was at most at any one time there was maybe 10 people on set at the most. Usually it was 5. And it was always also from the beginning, it's very much in the script, naked, nudity, naked, more naked.
But
just to make it clear to any actors, that it was sort of it was a non-negotiable in a way. Actually in the script, after Benjamin takes the bath, he never puts his shorts back on. He's just naked from the for the rest of the movie. And then when we got to the woods of Maine and sort of the logistics of shooting in running through the woods and crouching by all that stuff, it was okay, let's do this with underwear.
Ticks.
Yeah, ticks, bugs.
Another question. So shy. Okay. Yeah, in terms of production, how long did you say it was?
We shot for 15 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, it's pretty much it's very independent, obviously, so you didn't have too much trouble to finance it. How did that?
Yeah, I mean, it was, from the beginning, I wrote it as something that, push came to shove, I wasn't going to have to look for outside financing.
Mm-hmm.
We did look for outside financing. People were oh, we love the script, but bring it to us when it's finished. And, so we had no outside financing, and we, just kind of, made it happen somehow. I cooked all the meals, and froze them, 3 weeks before we shot, and, that's our cabin, that my dad built that I was forced to help him build when I was a teenager. And all of the locations, all of the, everything in the film is something that I had access to, that normally you probably would have paid for, but I knew that I wouldn't have to pay for it, and that's how it ended up in the script. Yeah.
That's smart.
I guess the bugs were probably the potentially the most expensive thing, but Dan Martin, who designed them, was someone I'd met at a film festival, and we hit it off, and we tried to do a couple of projects together, and nothing had worked. And so I sent him the script, and he was I'll make some bugs and I'll FedEx. I'll send them to you. And so he made those the practical bugs, and we did a little Zoom lesson on how to puppeteer them, and kind of did it ourselves.
Yeah. How do they work actually?
They're little animatronic,
Okay.
wire, very very old school,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. One more question. Yes.
What is your fascination with bugs and plant life? Because the last movie I'd seen was The Ruin.
Yeah.
Just curious.
I mean, I don't know. Like, to be honest, like, I'm not sure I have a good answer. I mean, I liked the bugs for me were just a way to into the story of Dom and Benjamin, and sort of, it's kind of like the doorway in. It's not so much. I don't like bugs. I don't, but I like the idea, of something like that that could bring them closer. And I like the idea that people are, willing to do crazy things, to get high, and with the ruins, I mean, plants. I mean, I guess I grew up in Maine, so I like the outdoors, but like I moved to New York City like the second that I could, so I didn't think I did, but maybe I do because it's working itself out, in my movies.
Okay, we're going to need to free the room for the next screening, but just to wrap it up, I'd like to know what's next for you both after that.
I just just locked picture actually on a new movie for Blumhouse called The Passenger, which is like a coming-of-age hostage road trip thriller with
Bugs?
with no bugs but blood. There's blood. There's no bugs. Yeah, so and I'm in post-production on that at the moment.
I have a great manager, so we'll see.
All right, thank you both. Thank you, everyone. And see you around. Thank you so much. Bye.
Good morning. This is Giles Edwards for 366 Weird Movies, and I am sitting down with the writer, director, and all-around filmmaker, Carter Smith, whose feature Swallowed was internationally debuted last night.
Yes, it was.
Hello, Carter.
Hi.
Well, it was a good movie, fun movie, and I kind of liked how normal it felt in its way. The first major thing I think that might be worth mentioning is the queer element. There are about 7 speaking roles, more or less, and 5 of those roles are queer characters in one way or another. And I was curious as to what your motivation for that might be, what inspired to have such a predominantly, queer cinema cast in a, shall we say, Cronenbergian genre setup.
Yeah, well, it probably comes from, wanting to see those characters and wanting to see those stories when I was a kid watching movies and watching those types of, these types of movies that, like, I never saw anybody like me in those movies, and there was never stories told, about characters that I related to and identified with. And I think that, I'm not the first person to say it, but like representation is so important, and it doesn't quite do enough to have a sidekick character or a comic relief character or a character that gets killed off first, and and I kind of liked this idea that the queer characters could be the good guys, they could be the bad guys, they could be the ambiguously bad guys, and there's sort of there wasn't one sort of neat, tidy role that these characters had to fit into, and that everybody sort of has this. There's a I don't want to say fluidity, but there's like a sliding scale to how queer or not queer a lot of them are. Some of them are certainly very queer, and then others are with someone like Alice. Who's not her sexuality is not really talked about other than one line, but I imagine her as someone who she's probably got a girlfriend at the moment. She might have a boyfriend, and then her past, like it's a little more, it's less binary. Maybe.
Yeah, flexibility there. Yeah, certainly with the co-lead character by the name of Dom,
Yeah.
who has awakening almost seems too strong a word for it, because there's from the get-go with the opening serenading scene, there's obviously a tension there beyond friendship between Dom and Benjamin.
Yeah.
And you mentioned last night in the Q&A about that being a sort of wish fulfillment for, like a queer or gay character having their best friend turn out to reciprocate more
Yeah.
than just the platonic
Yeah.
feelings there. When writing, I'd say in particular for Dom, since he was in a way of most interest to me, having that sort of shift
Yep.
in his perception, is that based on any thing in your past, or just a sort of general pastiche of other characters, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about, it was like wanting to see a character that maybe wasn't so rigidly defined. Like he can sort of accept the love that his friend feels for him and be okay with it without, needing to either, push him away or have sex with him. Like that there can be intimacy and love that doesn't have to, between male friends, that doesn't have to be sexual.
Yeah, again, going back to that wonderful term flexibility, which
Yeah.
is something I think would be good to see in general, because certainly from my experience with all manner of people,
Yeah.
they're not all the same
Yeah.
at any,
Everybody's different, and being able to accept love and doesn't mean that you have to, have sex with someone. It kind of goes deeper and further than that.
Excellent. And to swing to more, I guess, to production kind of question. Again, you mentioned last night in the Q&A, which I was lucky enough to record, so I'll be posting
good.
that as part of this. You said you found people willing to support the movie, but not before you'd actually made it.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine the utility for getting that support eventually, which I saw you did from the credits. What did that help you with, seeing as by that time you'd effectively put together
A rough cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest supporters, honestly, were U.S. in Progress in Poland, which Noah Lang, my producer, had taken a film to them in the past, and we sent them a rough cut, and ended up being one of, I think it was 6 films selected to take part in U.S. in Progress. Went to Poland, presented it to a jury of Polish post-production visual effects houses, audio engineers, and we were awarded all of our visual effects and deliverables by an amazing Polish company called Fixa. So we didn't pay a penny for any of that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that that did come on board, were either people that I had worked with before, or people that were excited about making a movie of this scale in Maine, on the production team. We shot in Maine, and there was a lot of people that it was their first feature film, and so there was a lot of opportunity for people to jump on.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, certainly from a logistics point of view, obviously the cabin is predominant. There's that bar at the beginning, and I guess other than that, there's the rest area.
Those were our 3. The rest area was the one location we paid for.
Okay, I was curious if you did a little
was-
maybe what's the word I'm looking at? Not pirate cinema necessarily, but that sort of.
No. We had to get permission. Yeah,
Very
we had to
good.
get permission, and that bar was that's the general store on the island where I live in Maine.
Oh.
So it was it was transformed into a pop-up nightclub.
Oh, well, and I guess the border crossing would be the only other thing there. So I like one of the main things I love coming to Fantasia or seeing the movies is filmmakers pushing their economy as far as they possibly can while still making a well-made and entertaining
This
product.
was pushed to as far as, exactly as you said, as far as it actually could be.
That's excellent. And looking at my watch, I don't have too much time. So you mentioned Maine, you mentioned your island. One thing I like to close out all my interviews with is, what is that hometown of yours, and can you recommend a restaurant there?
So I'm from Bailey Island in Maine, and there's a fabulous restaurant that just opened up this year called Sun Drenched. It's not. There's a very famous restaurant called Cook's Lobster House, but I much prefer Sun Drenched.
Now, where is Bailey Island geographically?
Southern Maine. It's just about 45 minutes north of Portland, near Bean and Freeport.
All right, I lived in Portland for 3 years while my husband was studying for pharmacy. So I know Portland.
Yeah, so by water, Bailey Island is just north of. It's like in Harpswell, like just north of Portland.
Yeah, my geography there was absolutely terrible.
Yeah,
I became a townie overnight in the move and saw absolutely nothing of the surrounding.
It's hard to get a lay of the land.
But that was a nice hit and run chat.
If you have another question, I'll answer it.
Oh, if I have another question? Well, I was just...
Sorry.
We can run a little longer.
Yeah,
okay. I wasn't sure how...
I always feel like these things are too short, and like people don't... I mean, I should have said this to you yesterday, but like that, that you feel like I'm cutting people off, and they have things they want to ask, but they don't have time. I don't mind if we run a little bit.
We have a buffer for this very reason.
Okay, as long as somebody's waiting is not going to be upset.
All right. Let me just... looking over here, I sort of came into this interview... with my fingers crossed, hoping to wing it. I did have a flippant question here about, action figures for this motion picture of yours. Anatomically correct. There's a lot of nudity, which, at least in my first few days here, I've noticed seems to have... Theme might be too strong a word, but
has
a greater prevalence.
Has there been a lot of nudity in other films?
I mean, I did see the cavalcade of perversions beforehand, so that's obviously asking for it kind of thing, but...
I wanted to make an equal opportunity movie with lots of penises.
Yeah, there was, and I'd say you succeeded, and it was a nice flip of the male gaze, as in very much the male-on-male gaze, as opposed to the
the opposite,
more traditional variety, I suppose.
And in that scene when Mark Patton's character is forcing Benjamin to strip, it's not dissimilar. From the gaze that we're used to. I mean, it's still predatory. It's still, he's doing that against his will and, because he has to. And so I think that there was something fun that I was trying to play with there that was, yes, we're getting to see something we haven't seen in the genre movies that we love, but it's also comes with baggage, and it's also maybe not the most,
Yeah, I like playing on basically the older stereotype of the gay, because you have Mark Patton as this wonderful, fabulous old queen.
Yeah.
And then you have the younger Benjamin as the sort of, contemporary, less absurd but still noticeable kind of modern gay individual, and watching those two play off was...
and like in Mark, sort of understanding and Rich the character, sort of seeing a bit of himself in Benjamin, and recognizing that he has something that is maybe gone at that point in his life, and sort of and sort of struggling to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to give too much away here, but do you really feel Rich deserved his fate? Because if anyone was ambiguous, it was definitely Rich. A lot of caveats and wiggle room for accountability there.
Yep.
But what happens to him was truly terrible.
Truly horrific, yeah. Well, and that was one of the things that I really wanted to make sure. I mean, that was what we were striving for, to make sure that when that happens, some people are cheering and happy that it's happening, and that there was a hopefully equal number of people that are like, oh, does he really deserve that? Like, I don't necessarily think that there's one answer, but I was trying very hard to make sure that it wasn't a black and white.
When you were writing, was Rich doomed like that from the get-go, or
was he what like that?
Was he doomed in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was always the sort of the full circle ending of the film.
Yeah, I'm reminded of Chekhov's shotgun or Chekhov's gun kind of thing, and so similar. I should have seen that coming, since I've seen this. It's one of my favorite screenplay tricks. Is like, oh, here's a thing randomly. Oh, that's going to show up again.
Yeah.
So no, that was it was a nice chamber drama, I guess, with first, second, third act things going on there, and so covered a lot, and I think definitely worth everyone giving it a shot.
Great.
And I think That thumbs up
Great.
says we're
Thank you
all
so
set
much.
here. Thank you. And that was Chris. Not Chris. That was Carter Smith.
You know what's so weird is everybody who gets my name wrong always says Chris. That's always the name that people like that comes out. Like, you know, it's so strange.
Yeah, I don't know why. Chris...
And I never quite understood that, and I've never. But
well, maybe explore that at some point. You can have a character showing up who's always Miss Chris.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much, Carter.
Thank you.
Great chat.